for his first interview. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us this morning.
Good morning, Laura.
Why did you quit?
Well, in government, if you have profound disagreements with the direction of policy, particularly those that you are personally leading, it's right that you step away. And on both illegal and illegal migration, I felt that we were not heading in the right direction. I couldn't be the minister who
not enough breaking of international law. No. Fulfill even fewer of our international obligations.
was guiding this critical bill through Parliament, recommending it to parliamentarians and to the public if I felt, as I do, that it is a weak bill that won't work.
The Prime Minister, though, said that your resignation was based on what he described as a fundamental misunderstanding of the situation. Now, do you not understand the plans for Rwanda, or does the Prime Minister not understand the plans for Rwanda?
Well, look, I've immersed myself in this issue more than anyone else in government. In fact, the Prime Minister said just the other day that...
I mean, you have. I mean, you definitely have immersed yourself in this issue specifically since you've been in the cabinet. And which is why you've just gone insane, essentially. Where your position in the cabinet, your ministerial cart, right, your access to your ministerial red box is entirely consumed with whether or not we can deport like 200 people to Rwanda, rather than the whole breadth of what your role might be, the whole responsibility that you have around inputting your ideology by using the power that you have in government to be able to shape the future of the country. And you're literally quitting and throwing your toys out of the pram over just an electoral gimmick, right? That's not there for any reason, any kind of utility, or what it's going to do with regards to migration or anything like that, right? It's taking a bunch of taxpayers' money, throwing it at Paul Kagame as part of your re-election fund. And this is what you've stuck your flag into, right? This was a resigning matter for you. And not even the fact that the legislation wasn't going ahead, but it wasn't going far enough in the level to which that it broke international law for you. So you decided to resign. It's almost like that he doesn't actually believe in this policy. That he doesn't actually really and truly care about like the finer details of what happens here. But he is part of a faction of people who dislike Rishi Sunak and have the ability in government to be able to undermine him by resigning, and therefore is joining this kind of internal Conservative Party putsch to be able to input whoever it is that you specifically want into number 10, post-electoral downfall, or even before the election happens. Because I find it, maybe, I mean, to be fair, it's Robert Jenrick. He is such like an absolutely putrid human being, if you can really call him that, if he really actually reaches the threshold of humanity to paint over murals for children, right, of Disney characters in an immigration detention centre, because that's how, like, bereft of humanity he is. I wouldn't put it past him to be so consumed with this idea of deporting people to Rwanda that it really does, like, pain the internal parts of his soul, that it's not quite draconian enough for him, even though it's going through and is still in contravention of a bunch of our international obligations anyway. But I think it's far more likely this is about internal power plays, and the entirety of our political scene, the entirety of our political policy, everybody in the media who's discussing this just gets caught up in this internal Tory psychodrama rather than actual scrutiny of whether or not the policy is good or not, or what the policy is actually there for, right? Like George Monbiot on Question Time was the first time that we literally had somebody calling out the government
fucking neoliberalism
for using the Rwanda plan as a gimmick to try and get themselves re-elected, right? They're doing it for electoral gain, and not indeed something that is to be done for the utility of the policy in general. Thank you for the £10 super chat. Christmas bonus. It's still an insult, still £10 here at Happy Christmas. Well, thank you very much for the Christmas super chat, Davinia. I mean, if you've not got much money, you don't have to donate. It's fine. But I appreciate every single super chat all the same, and your continued support, both in chat, in membership, and just in the support of the channel. Davinia is much appreciated. A lot of New Labour was about running to the right of the Tories on racial issues. I mean, 100%. I mean, literally, this Rwanda plan that we're seeing from the government is just a rehash of the same, like, Tanzania plan that Tony Blair had in the 2000s. But Blair was at least smart enough to realise that, you know, these things that are in contravention of international law make you look bad. They make you look stupid. Actually, these things are unworkable. And trying to make it the benchmark of basically all of your policy platform for the entirety of your time in government is not a way of winning votes. It's not a way of being successful. And all it does is make your party look stupid.
I was probably the minister who knows more about this topic of any that he's met in Europe. So I think I do understand this issue.
He doesn't. He's wrong to say.
Well, I respect the Prime Minister, of course I do, and our disagreement is on this issue, but it is an absolutely totemic one to the future of the Conservative Party and to the public. And I don't believe this bill will...
No one cares. I mean, that's a lie. There is actually quite a lot of people who do care. There was interesting polling that came out that far be it all of the people who care about this stuff being people from like rundown working class areas and from poor backgrounds. In fact, the people who really care about the Rwanda plan are well-off socially conservative people who don't have any real problems during a cost of living crisis, whereas the stats show that the groups of people who are going to decide the next election are people who actually don't care about this because they have much bigger fish to fry, namely the fact that they can't afford to pay their bills, right? And that the only people who really truly care about this totemic issue are people who literally haven't got anything else going wrong in their lives because they've got lucrative pensions or they're in particularly well-paid positions in the country, so much so that they have time to care about the Rwanda plan.
Will work. I think it will lead to a range of legal claims which will bog down our scheme and will not create the deterrent that he and I set out to achieve. And the test for this is not, can you get one or two symbolic flights off before the next election with a handful of illegal migrants on them? It's, can you create a strong deterrent that is sustainable and stops the boats and protects the borders of this country for years to come? That's what I want to achieve, and I'm afraid this bill is not it.
And you will not vote for it on Tuesday?
I mean, none of those things are what that's supposed to do, right? It's not a real deterrent. It's only sending like a couple of hundred people over. It doesn't protect our borders or decrease the level of immigration because we have to accept the same number coming from Rwanda anyway. And if they commit crimes, they get sent back to the UK regardless. You're usually filtering out so that we keep all of the criminals, if there are any, to be fair, because a lot of these are just asylum seekers who you've taken away the ability to claim asylum from, taken away their protections from modern slavery. Like, this is just how, like, utterly subhuman people like Robert Jenrick are. How utterly in contempt of like the basic tenets of the level to which that you should express some amount of humanity towards fellow people. But of course, these are the Browns, right? So they're not good enough to get access to Robert Jenrick's failing humanity. But if you're coming from Ukraine or Hong Kong, not a problem. It's not even a deterrent, right? I mean, literally the first thing that came up when I opened up TikTok this morning was a BBC News Vox Pop with a guy who was fleeing Gambia saying, no, I'd still try and come to the UK even if there was the potential to get deported to Rwanda. Because again, it doesn't even work. But again, it's performative cruelty, and no amount of money for these people is too much to be performatively cruel with. It's so frustrating. It's so incredibly demoralizing that like people never question where the money's coming from. But as soon as you say maybe we should take care of the disabled, suddenly it's like, oh, no magic money tree. Pathetic, failing country.
Tuesday, therefore?
No, I won't be supporting this bill, but I do think we can fix this. And that's what I want to do now. I care about this policy because I care about border security. And I'm determined that we can persuade the government and colleagues in Parliament that there is a better way.
What's absolutely at the core of this is what you've hinted there. And without getting into a big legal tangle, but to explain to viewers, at the heart of this is whether or not migrants would have the right to challenge being sent to Rwanda in the courts. Now, it is your belief, as you've made clear, that there would be lots of appeals which could then gum up the system. What chances did the government's legal advice?
Yeah, we are the party that believe in law and order. Unless, of course, it's the basic principle in a liberal democracy of right to a fair trial and right to legal representation. No, because it's not, if you're someone that we've depersoned, right? If you're someone who's from the wrong country, who's the wrong skin colour, who speaks the wrong language, or might be from the wrong culture, which is what they like talking about, then all of the benefits of liberal democracy can be taken away from you, right? It can all be taken away as long as we are somebody that we have depersoned, right? And that's it, right? And Ropes into Eden was right in chat to point out that the vast majority of these people like racism is just like the driving force behind this, and they absolutely resent the idea that the Western liberal democracy that they cherish so dearly is something that they should want to open up to other people, when actually what they really care about is creating an in-group and an out-group and shutting it away from people that they don't like, rather than thinking that their way of doing things is better, like the liberals of old, who at least tried to defend something as awful as the British Empire upon the idea of spreading our values to other people because we think that they are worth defending and are worth spreading to people. In fact, the opposite is now true, where now people actually do want access to these things that we forced on people previously, right? The absolute result of the history of empire. Now people want access to the things that we enjoy. Suddenly we want to wall them off. We want to keep it away from other people. We don't want to share. We are the most spoiled of spoilt children in a collapsing, dying country run by people who don't know what they're doing other than the desire to want to be performatively cruel for money. That's it. The legacy of empire destroyed, made to look pathetic, and our standing on the world stage as what our once great country in their minds used to be, in tatters, and they haven't got a clue what they're doing other than the desire to want to bring that back by any means necessary. And it will fail, because this country has failed. It's full of failures and it's run by failures. Good job, well done.
Give the system of working.
Well, it's not right for me to speak about private legal advice. There's a clear convention of that. But you've seen reporting in the press which suggests that the government's own view is that it has a relatively low likelihood of success.
So why is Rishi Sunak then saying that it doesn't? Is he misleading people?
What matters here is a bill that works. And I said very directly to the Prime Minister that if he and I are going to persuade colleagues in Parliament, and above all the public, because this is about the public, that this scheme actually works, we have to be absolutely certain that it's going to succeed. Remember, Laura, we've already done 2 bills. This is the 3rd bill. It's 3 strikes or you're out. I want this bill to work and create that powerful deterrent. And I'm afraid it's very clear to all those people who really understand how this system operates that this bill...
So once we've spent the £300 million, right? You read that right. £300 million this is going to cost us to send 200 people to Rwanda. Once all of those people have been sent, right, the deterrent's gone. Not that it was a deterrent to begin with, right? But once all of those houses that we've built in our economic and development partnership with Rwanda are all full of the people that we've sent already, then you've not even got a deterrent anymore. Like, not only is it evil, it's also stupid and also doesn't work. Like, nothing about this even, like, approaches being in any way something that any reasonable person would engage in.
Will not succeed. As you just alluded to, what will happen is that absolutely everyone who comes across on a small boat will put in a claim that Rwanda might be generally safe, but for individual reasons it's not safe for them. And that will have a number of practical implications.
There's a very, very important thing, though, that you've just said. You've just said anyone who understands this knows that it won't really work. And yet the Prime Minister, your friend and ally, stood at a lectern in Downing Street this week, quite angrily, saying it will work. There is only a vanishingly narrow chance of there being a small number of appeals. So the implication of what you've said is either that Rishi Sunak doesn't understand these proposals, or he's somehow massaging his message to the public to pretend that this bill will do more than you believe it can.
Well, we respectfully disagree on this one issue. I think that a political choice has been made to bring forward a bill which doesn't do the job. And I think that at this moment, when you've got a small boats crisis where 114,000 people have crossed the channel on dangerous...
So again, I just want to make it really clear, right, that the only sticking point of this is the access to there being legal response to being deported to Rwanda, right? That is basically the crux of everything that Robert Jenrick disagrees with. This kind of declaration of Rwanda definitely being a safe country, right, even though it's not, but funding militant groups in Eastern Congo, that's not a good thing. That's not safe. The potential for border conflicts with Kivu spilling out into Rwanda, right? That's unsafe. And the potential for deportation again, moving on from Rwanda. And Rwanda are they themselves, right? The ones who have been guilty of these kind of things. also saying they might renege on the deal because of human rights concerns, right? Because of international law concerns that we might break. All of that stuff is fine for Robert Jenrick, but he's so angry and so taken aback by the idea that we might be admitting legal recourse to some of these people. That was enough for him to quit his cabinet role. His ministerial role was worth resigning over just because of that singular sticking point. It's again, it's not just evil, it's stupid. Like, what was the point? Unless, of course, again, this is performative, clearly. Because the actual difference is so minimal.
Dangerous, unnecessary, illegal small boats, that we cannot take that risk. The stakes, as you said in your introduction, are simply too high. And the public will not forgive us
to do something that
if we get this
they know
wrong
might
again.
not work. Do you believe the UK has to leave the European Convention on Human Rights to make this work?
No, I don't.
You don't.
I do think that there is a very strong argument for leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, but that is a debate for another day. There are respectable legal...
Yes, because then we can have a communist revolution, just like the ECHR was deliberately made to stop. Looking forward to that, Rob.
...arguments for doing all the things that I'm proposing whilst remaining consistent with our international law obligations.
So you do believe the bill can be toughened up?
I would say that even if that were not the case, I will always put the vital national interests of this country and the views and concerns of the British public above contested notions of international law. We're sent to Parliament to represent those people, the general public. We're not sent to Parliament to be concerned about our reputations on the gilded international circuit. It is absolutely critical we fix this problem because in my job, day in, day out, I have seen the untold damage that these small boat arrivals are doing to our country, the community cohesion issues that we're seeing, the billions of pounds that are being wasted on hotels, money that could be...
That's literally your fault, right? You were the ones who, through austerity, defunded the asylum seeker processing system, leaving us with a gigantic backlog that have to be housed somewhere, right? I will literally go back and say that during the previous government, we were processing double the number of asylum seekers and there was never ever a backlog. The backlog started in 2010. It's really strange how you stop funding these things and suddenly they stop functioning in the way that they should be functioning. How weird. Who could have expected such a thing to happen? But you're the ones who chose to spend the money on hotels. You were the ones who chose to spend the money on this stupid Rwanda thing. Right, £300 million. You're the one who chose to spend the money in ridiculous ways. But of course, they know what they're doing. They know that they get to drum up anti-migrant sentiment by spending loads of taxpayers' money, putting these people who are desperate into hotels in like working class communities who already have their public services strained because of austerity, and then using that as an electoral platform to try and make people more racist and use that to be able to change the future voting and ideological shape of the country. It's odd. It's really weird, hasn't it? How none of these migrants being held in hotels end up in Kensington, is it? They don't end up in Kensington, do they? No. They don't end up in Saffron Walden, do they? No. Isn't it weird how they all end up in working class communities and never end up in the posh areas that these people hang out? It's a real head scratcher, isn't it?
Be spent on better things for the British public or making a bigger contribution internationally to supporting those who are genuinely in danger. Lives are being lost in the Channel and evil people smuggling gangs are feasting on the industry that's being created. We have to stop this once and for all. And if you...
Yeah, you created it. You didn't build up again or re-enter into the safe and legal routes that existed before Brexit, right? Literally, there was no trade for small boat crossings across the Channel before 2016 because we were part of the safe and legal routes that are available within the European Union. We then extricated ourselves from those, didn't then restart those routes, and now people have no choice but to go across the Channel if they want to claim asylum in the UK, which they can do by international law under the Refugee Convention. Dick Pendrin is right in chat. Like, the fact that Laura Kongsberg hasn't at any point said anything that I've said in response to him. Shows you how pathetic that she is, right? All of these claims that he's making that are literally the fault of his government and his policy, not even being scrutinised, because of course, why would Laura Kuenssberg scrutinise a member of the government that she exists to prop up? Or at least the ideology that she's there to prop up. Just a stenographer at this point? Yeah, she always has been.
Share my determination to do that, bring forward the toughest possible legislation.
Except the Rwanda policy as designed is only at the beginning going to deal with a couple of hundred people a year.
Well, the scheme is uncapped, and it has potential to go much higher than that.
Deal with a couple of hundred people a year. So why is it the answer?
Well, look, I've never said it's the only part of our solution. I've worked immensely hard over the last year, and the work that we've done, in fact, the Prime Minister and I have done together, has led to a more than 30% reduction in the numbers coming across, and that's with our negotiations with Albania, the work we're doing with France, the tougher law enforcement approach. However, the key insight that I've learned over the course of the last year is that we will not stop the boats in their entirety unless you interject the strongest possible deterrent. And that is what the Rwanda policy delivers.
I want to talk about legal migration, but do you think planes will ever get off the ground and go to Rwanda?
I do.
No question on safe and legal routes from Kuenssberg. No question around the fact that it was their fault that they were gone because of Brexit, right? At no point is she questioning him over whether or not the deterrent would even work. And no questioning on their failures on processing that have got us to this point as well, right? No questioning on any of this. Just, do you think planes will taking off? I wonder how good you think this policy will go. She's like so terrible. So awful. Again, no question on the distinction between Ukrainians and people coming across the channel, mostly from Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. No questioning around any of that. She's pathetic.
I do, and I think it's absolutely critical that they do, but I don't think that they will get it up and running under this bill, and we will certainly not deliver the serious deterrent, the sustainable deterrent that I'm looking for, unless we change this bill. And I hope that the Prime Minister and the government will listen.
Let's talk about...
And if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.